Hey, so my name is Grace. I'm a singer-songwriter, and I love to talk to other singer-songwriters and ask them how they write their music. So I've compiled some of those ways that I figured out how other people write music, and I've tried to write it that way myself, and now I'm going to share that with you. So maybe you can try it out. If you are already a songwriter, this might give you some ideas that you might not have thought of before, and if you've never written a song, it might inspire you to try. So the first method I have here for you today is writing a melody and lyrics first, basically just singing a cappella and then trying to put some music to that. So I have one song that I did that with on the verse. I wrote verse 1 completely a cappella while I was driving. Then I had to go and put chords to it. And the way that you can put chords to it is by trying to establish what the beat is in the melody that you're singing, figure out what that feel is or what that time signature is, and also establish what notes you're singing so that you can understand what key you're in and what chords to use. You can do all of that with your ear. You don't have to do it by actually knowing the theory, but that's generally the process. So it goes, when I drive, I see all these perfect destinations, but somehow when the car stops, all of my will is gone. And I can't seem to find my way home or to anywhere else it's worth going. I know I can't dream up a city with all of the people gone. And the music sounds like this. When I drive, I see all these perfect destinations, but somehow when the car stops, all of my will is gone. And I can't seem to find my way home or to anywhere else it's worth going. I know I can't dream up a city with all of the people gone. Now the second way I want to show you how you can write is kind of the opposite. You use a chord progression first, so you come up with some music you like, and then you start singing over it. So I was just screwing around on the guitar one time. And I think the way that you write melodies over music that's already established is just basically by improvising, singing over it. But if you're having trouble understanding what notes go with the chord, then you can go ahead and play the individual notes that you're playing on the guitar or on the piano or whatever it might be, and try to sing one of those. And that's a good way to pick out a melody. In terms of lyrics that match the music, you can kind of try to understand what mood you're going for already with the music, and then see if you can copy that with lyrics. Or maybe create a fun juxtaposition where the lyrics and the music don't match. And then I wrote this melody over that. And I hoped I'd never lose it. Now I've broke my little heart, and I chose So that's an example of how you can write using that method. I think you can kind of see already, just comparing those two, how writing with different approaches can create really different music. I do find that each approach has kind of certain things that it creates. I think the melodies end up really established with the first method. The music might be a little bit secondary, whereas with the second method, the melodies end up being dictated by what you play on the instrument and might be different from a melody you write out of thin air. I always find I leave more space when I'm playing the instrument than I would when I'm singing a cappella, for instance. So then there's another method, and that would be starting with a concept and working from a really clear storyline before you even think about the music or any words that you might say. This is a completely different method from the first two. I wrote this song called Change, Lonely Places, which is on my first album. In that song, I'm talking about this myth, this like Mesoamerican traditional story of Coyolxauhqui, the goddess. So I was learning about this in a Chicana feminism class, and I decided to write a song as my final. So what I did to do this was to write down everything that I'd learned, read the story again, and then write all the words and feelings that I was associating with it. And then I tried to understand how that related to my life, because I like to write about my life. And then I wrote this song which has a lot of those same themes as the myth has. Yeah, so the myth is like about how she gets taken apart into a bunch of pieces and then has to put herself back together. And so I'm talking about the general feeling of feeling broken and then like sort of growing from it. And that's how I wrote that song. So that's an interesting one to try out. I think that's one that people sometimes forget about. And then there's some people I know who I've spoken to who that's like the only way they write. They always have a clear storyline before they start. So I think that's a really fun one, but also kind of a challenging one. Then we have starting with a metaphor, which is a really great one, I think, as well. It's kind of like the story thing, but a different spin on that. So for me, I wrote this song called Shades of Green a few years ago. In that song, I was thinking about this person that I knew who I was really proud of for how hard they were working on some of their like personal issues. So I wrote the song like about how I felt like they were like this little bud who was just blooming. That was like my metaphor that I began with. And then I wrote the whole song kind of surrounding that metaphor. So this is also my first album. I see your warm heart. I know that to love you is to let you grow. And every root and branch that's been showing's a precious thing. And slowly they'll join into a work of art. I hope that the careful seeds that you're sowing bloom shades of green. Yeah, so the lyrics are all kind of these little, not super really intense plant words and things, just kind of like getting that feeling out there. I've written quite a few songs starting with a metaphor, and this is my favorite of them probably. Some of them do end up, in my experience, being a little bit forced seeming, but I do sometimes think that starting with a metaphor or a simile of some kind can give you really, really strong imagery to work with right off the bat, and that's a great thing to go off of. And it also gives you, if you're having trouble accessing the thing directly, the feeling, a lot of times it can be quite emotional to write certain things, and people I know sometimes are like, I don't want to say it outright, so you can use metaphorical language to kind of access that conversation in a safer way too. So that's really cool. Now, sometimes, especially if you've been writing for a while, you just kind of sit down and you start playing and the words come and the lyrics come and the melodies come all at once. You're just kind of hearing it and you're kind of doing it, and then you just do your best to, you know, voice memo it or write it down as you're working. It's rare that that happens just like consistently for a full song, but certain times when I'm working, it'll just kind of all come out at once. Improvise, I think, is basically what that is, right? Like just say the first thing that comes to your head about it and just play the chord that you think goes and just do it. And that's, I don't really have any advice there. It's just kind of like, give it a try sometime. I did write some music that way, especially parts of this song called Range of Sounds in the Night. This song has quite a lot of different chords in it, and I think the main challenge of this one was like I was hearing it in my head, all these chords, and it was just understanding actually what I was hearing. So that's one reason I am a big advocate for learning music theory, because the more you kind of understand how to look for what you're hearing, the easier it is to find it. And feel the joy of my own two feet. I fill the space with any token of happiness. I kill the trace of any morsel of light. 'Cause I'm scared to face the range of sound in the night. So that's one example. It was just kind of flowing that day, and that's always magical when that happens. But yeah, give it a try. Don't think you have to be so methodical. Sometimes just playing comes up with something really cool. Then another way I've found I like to write lately, and I know in a lot of styles this is kind of the way, in a lot of songwriters this is the way, and that's starting with a bass line. Of course, bass lines create so much harmonic content right off the bat, and they can be really interesting, especially like a descending bass line or some specific melodic bass line. It gives you just a lot of vibes to go off of really quickly. So I think during my Song a Day for a Month in January, I wrote quite a few bass line first songs. I was really enjoying that. One specific one where the bass line was really important to the song is my song called Manic Pixie. So here's the bass line. And that's quite a simple bass line really, but I think it gives a big vibe, a big feeling right off the bat. Just that and the drums. Something is happening, you know? All this drops in. But the same bass line's still going the whole time. Yeah, so that's an example of what might happen if you write a bass line first. Then also you can start with a beat, a drum beat, a groove of some kind. This is also something I was doing a lot during the song a day, and one I remember specifically starting with the drum part itself. It's not a complicated beat, but it's just what I started with. It's a song called 3 a.m.
Don't know where I'm going, but I'm gonna get there soon. On the grind till 3 a.m. and waking up at noon. Nothing's gonna fall off of a tree into my hand. So I'm gonna work even harder, wait and see what I've got planned.
Yeah, so you can kind of hear how the beat is integral to the song itself and how the melody kind of like plays off of it. So I think it might even be slightly obvious how that was the first thing in the song. Or maybe it's not. Tell me in the comments if you can tell. Yeah, I'd love to know your thoughts generally, so tell me in the comments anything that you feel about the difference between writing in these different ways, how you like to write, how you've been told you should write if that's happened, maybe how your friends write. And the last way that I'm going to show you is writing from a song title. Now, a lot of people write this way as far as I've heard. This is like a classic songwriter's trick to keep a list of titles and maybe write and then put your titles to it or write from titles. I've heard a lot of people talk about this. I find it really challenging to write from titles. I tend to write not always understanding what I'm trying to say and then put the title on at the end. But every so often you come up with some little hook or some little feeling that's really clear and you start with that word or that phrase and that becomes the title, and that becomes the title. Or oh my god. So like back in the day, I wrote this song called A Hell of a Lot Like Love, and that was like 14, 15. That's one of my older songs. I will not show you that. But I do remember that that was the first thing that I thought of. Like I thought of this line, a hell of a lot like love. And then I wrote a chorus, a hook surrounding that, and then the song did end up being called that. So that's one example. I know quite a few people who write this way. But one song that's more recent that I remember writing this way is my song called Motivation, which is, it's labeled on YouTube, it's called like Song in a Day. I wrote this in one day, which was obviously before my like full song a day project, because that's like was true of another 30 videos after that. But this song called Motivation, I remember thinking like I want to write about motivation, like the feeling, the need for it, etc. And then that ended up being the song title. So that was like writing from this one word, became a song, became the song title. And this way of writing actually I did in a workshop recently with a bunch of other people, and that was really fun because you could hear how that word or phrase that was their title became the song, and how some people kind of went where you expected and other people you maybe were shocked by how that title turned into a song. So I do think this is quite an interesting way to challenge yourself to write.
I know it'll get easier as I go. Having this bed made up of people I know. It's more than priceless, indescribably precious. But I need some time, need some patience to remember my motivation.
That's writing from a title. So go ahead and try these out for yourself. I'd love to know how you find it, writing in all these different ways. I hope this was helpful or interesting. I had a lot of fun just kind of chatting to you guys about some songwriting methods, which is kind of like a big interest of, oh my god, my street is so loud, I don't know if you can hear it. It was really fun chatting to you guys about just like different methods of songwriting, because I am so interested in that and I love chatting to other songwriters about it. So please comment below some stuff, some thoughts, some reflections on this video, and I will see you next time. Bye.